Hello and welcome to October 14th episode of UMass Sports Weekly, your source for UMass Sports. I'm your host, Chris Corso, and with the basketball season coming up, the Minutemen were ranked 4th in the preseason Atlantic 10 poll today. But let's go ahead and take a little look at the highlights in this week's action in UMass athletics. How did the men's hockey team perform in their conference home opener against BU? The men's soccer team took on A10 opponent VCU this weekend, and the UMass football team and head coach Mark Whipple can finally exhale after the Minutemen performance against Kent State this week. We have all these stories and much more coming on up. This is UMass Sports Weekly.
This is UMass Sports Weekly.
Friday night, the UMass men's hockey team opened up against NHL's top prospect, Jack Eichel, and Boston University. The Terriers scored 6 goals in the third period to blow out UMass 8-1. Here's our own Tommy Coluti's highlights of the game.
On Friday night, the Minutemen opened their season against regional rival BU, hoping to start off the year in a good way. Halfway through the first period, Robbie Belageron beats Oleg Yavenko to the post and slides a loose puck past Steve Maskelos to give BU the lead. BU takes an early 2-0 lead when Zach LaRue finds freshman Jake Horton to give the Minutemen their first goal of the season. Then, the UMass home opener ended and the Jack Eichel and Danny O'Regan show began. First Eichel, then Eichel to O'Regan, then O'Regan to Eichel to give BU a 5-1 lead. Things only got worse for the Minutemen as BU put up 3 more goals and coasted to an 8-1 victory.
I don't think that we're anywhere near being a finished product. Although I was happier with what we were in the beginning parts of the game, certainly I don't think that what we revealed tonight is going to be who we are by Thanksgiving. Unfortunately, the competitor and anyone in that room, player or staff included, does not allow for great perspective right now.
But was there anything positive you could take from the young guys?
I'm sure there is. We'll look for it on the video.
Welcome back to UMass Sports Weekly. I'm Chris Corso with the man who covered the game, Tommy Coluti, and man, a tough loss, Tommy, for the Minutemen. You heard what Coach Micheletto had to say. 8-1, 6 goals, as we said, in the third period. Like you said before to me, BU was really just pounding it all over the Minutemen. No mercy for the Minutemen in that game. So
none whatsoever.
We're going to go to our first video highlight of the game on camera here, and that's what Tommy has. He's got some highlights, so take it away, Tom.
So, Chris, when you think of the BU offense, you think high octane, you think fast. And that really created problems for UMass defense. Now, like you said, Jack Eichel, top prospect, and then they had players like Adi Oskinen and Danny O'Regan on the first line, but I think it was more self-inflicted wounds from UMass. So I'm going to show you guys the first goal in fast motion. I want you to take a look at what happens here. So as you can see, puck gets sent in, and it's slapped in by Robbie Belageron. So there's your first goal. Now, I want to break it down in slow-mo and show you what actually happens. So, you see the puck coming in, and we're going to stop it right here. So what you see is that's bad defensive play from number 8 on UMass. He lets a puck go through, he lets a player beat him into the slot and in front of Steve Mastelers, which can't happen. That means you've created a 2-on-1 in front of the net. Now, if you continue the clip, you see the puck go through right into Steve Mastelers. Now, Oleg Yavenko, number 25, is supposed to be UMass's lockdown defender. You have 2 jobs in that scenario. You either whack the puck out of the crease or you body this forward away from the net so he has no access to Steve Mastelers. In that scenario, both defensemen fail, as you see BU's assistant captain on one side of the post and then Robbie Belageron on the other. Oleg gets beaten wide, gets beaten to the net, and gets beaten for a goal. Now, That was only one of the problems for the Minutemen. Let's look at the next BU goal. As you can see, a little bit of celebration, well deserved. That was the first. That was the first goal of the season at the Moen Center. So I mean, not the best thing in the world for Minuteman fans to see. So here's our next goal. This is Fournier over to Jack Eichel. Now, I'm going to rewind this a little bit, and I'm going to show you where the Minutemen go wrong again. So, the pass goes up to Jack Eichel. Freeze frame it right there. So, Jack Eichel, great shot, hockey prospect. Now, you have two defensemen here. Both defensemen either need to collapse into the middle. One needs to take a forward approach and put a body on Jack Eichel, while the other defender slides back. Or they both need to drop back closer to block the shot. As you can see, what ends up happening is neither of them does anything, and Eichel has a clear shot to the net. Now, what I want to point out about that, Steve Mastelers, as you saw right before this got paused, Mastelers in that position, sticking his blocker out, trying to get a little semblance of the shot. Now, Jack Eichel was right about here, top of the slot. That shot is going to come in straight on Steve Mastelers. If he stays in a regular goaltender position right in front of the puck, there's no way that goes in. It hits him in the chest, hits him in the shoulder. That was just one of the many things that Mastelers did miserably wrong in this game. And I want to show you this last goal by Jack Eichel. So here we go. The puck comes up. This is the Eichel goal again. And I want to pause it right here. Huge spot in between the two defenders. Eichel has the opportunity to either go to the net, he can drop it to Oskinen here, or you have Danny O'Regan swinging around the back here. So what eventually happens is, even if Jack Eichel misses the net or passes it off, you have another forward crashing from down here right in front of Mastelers, and you have Oskinen who can swing up this way right into the slot while Eichel drives to the net, creating a 2-1-0 in front of Steve Mastelers. That can't happen, and the Minutemen need to fix that. Now I want to show you another instance of just poor defensive play by the Minutemen. Again, Steve Mastelers has to play better. That's a huge thing. So here's Jack Eichel coming down, and he just puts it past Steve Mastelers. Looks like a good goal, looks like a great shot, but let's watch this in slow motion. So Eichel gets a pass, and he's carrying it into the zone, and let's stop it right here. You can see Mark Hetnick pointing to Oleg Yavenko where to go. Yavenko, again, who is supposed to be your lockdown defender, is standing basically flat-footed with no clue what to do. Now this is a basic 3-on-2 rush. Oskinen is going to swing this way for a drop pass, and O'Regan is going to crash the net. So what Yavenko's job is to do, you can't see it yet, but Frank Vetrano is coming in for back support. That forward takes the forward that is looking for the drop pass. This defenseman, Mark Hetnick, who eventually does his job, takes out O'Regan going to net, giving him no clear path to Steve Mastelers. That leaves Yavenko. Yavenko's job is to get in the shooting lane of Jack Eichel, guy with a great shot. I've said his name about 6 times already. So he's pretty good. And let's just see what Oleg does in this scenario. He sits there, and Eichel scores. Now, a little bit of good on this play. You see O'Regan around the outside, Hetnick does his job. You see Frank Vetrano right there, he does his job. And then you look at Jack Eichel stick in the air with Oleg still chasing him. This is not what the Minutemen need. They need to do better in transition D, and I think that's one of the biggest problems they're going to have this year.
Wow, now that was some great footage by Tommy, and wow, great coverage of that game. I mean, you see it right there. This Minutemen defense is not ready for teams like BU and BC and the powerhouses of this conference. That it's going to be big trouble for the team this year. But we focus on the defense of the Minutemen, and now we're going to flip things over to the poor offensive game that the Minutemen had. They had one goal, which came early from a UMass freshman. No attack scene throughout the entire game. Pretty much the puck was in control of the Terriers the entire game. So tell us what happened on the other side. Was it BU's defense that stopped the Minutemen, or could you say that it was a lack of offense on our side?
Well, to that point, I'd like to add, I would have a video breakdown of what was good or bad on UMass's offense, but there was just a huge combination of both. What you saw is you saw a trend. UMass would chip the puck off the glass out of the zone, BU would regroup and dump it in. UMass would chip it out of the zone, BU would regroup and dump it back in. UMass would get some semblance of an attack, and then BU would rush against the poor transition defense of UMass. BU's defensemen were not overpowering. At the end of the game, despite the 8-1 score, the shots were 39-32. I mean, UMass had their chances in this game. What I saw was a lack of execution. BU blocked 27 shots. That can't happen, and most of them came on the power play. Your power play, especially with a guy like Frank Vetrano and Dennis Kravchenko at the points, guys who you can count on to take your one-time slap shot in the umbrella power play format, you can't have your shots get blocked. That turns into turnovers, and that turns into quick goals. So what I say is UMass wasn't as opportunistic as they could be. I think BU's defense was good. I think BU controlled this game. But I think UMass did have the chance. Once they scored that first goal, Jay Corton had a really nice goal. Everybody thought UMass was back in it. And then it was taken right away by those 2 goals by Eichel and O'Regan. But UMass had their chances, and I think this team, from what we've seen, UMass is going to have to lean on their offense this year. And I really think that this is a team that could be good, and I think it's a team that has the opportunity to be better on offense.
Now you seem to show that this team has potential, even though going through that footage we saw the defeat that the Minutemen took. As we saw in this game, no mercy for the Minutemen, no mercy for UMass. BU's a powerhouse. They have the NHL's top prospect already being compared to Sidney Crosby by some experts in the NHL. And what do we think about this competition in the Hockey East? Do we think that we have a chance to measure up against the high quality of competition in this division?
This is a tough division. The Hockey East is no slouch. Unlike most of the teams that play for UMass, hockey is the team where they're in the toughest division. The way I look at the Hockey East, my breakdown, you have BC, you have BU, you have UNH, you have UMaine. And of late, you've had Quinnipiac, who's made it to, I believe, another Final Four. So I think it's going to be tough to compete with these guys. These teams are teams that have freshmen that are 24 years old coming out of Canada, and I think it's going to be tough for these Minutemen. I think with their speed, they're going to be able to compete, but I think it's going to be tough.
All right, Tommy, well, we'll see. Great job on those highlights and great job with the coverage of the game the other night. And we're going to switch things over to UMass football. We have some good news with the UMass football team and Coach Mark Whipple, which is a little change for our segment for UMass football. The hockey team will be facing off against Michigan State in a non-conference 2-game set this weekend.
2-0 against Michigan State last year.
2-0 last year, so that's good news as well. But we'll be back with UMass football. Welcome back. The Minutemen football team finally did what it had to do after jumping out to an early lead against Kent State this weekend. A 40-17 win for the Minutemen. It is a sign of relief, just a great thing. Mark Whipple's first win back on campus since they won the national championship in AA. So it's great to see them not only get out to the lead, but to stay with the lead throughout the game to the last snap, and that's to the last field goal, to the last extra point, to the last everything that you could possibly imagine could happen in a football game, because everything has gone wrong so far, and finally we got our first win. So Mark Whipple's happy, the team's happy, and I'm happy, and I'm here with Xander Manning and Joey Sade, our football experts. So first of all, we'll start out with you, Xander. A 40-17 win. Getting out to the early lead has not been the problem, as I said before, because they've done it all year, but keeping that lead and taking it to the last possession and closing out the game, which is what they did against a winless Kent State team. What was different in this game? Why was it so easy?
First of all, I think one of the main keys is they finally stopped using Blake Lucas. He's been next to useless all season, missing extra points, missing easy field goals. And they used Logan Laurent to kick field goals today, and he went, was 3 for 4 on extra points, and he hit every field goal that he tried. That really helped them a lot. And the offensive line is finally stepping up this season. They've really showed that they can do what it takes to win a game, and the receiving corps just stepped up even bigger than they have all season.
Well, Joey, tell me a little bit more. What else happened for the Minutemen? I know the offense, 40 points, has not been the issue, honestly. Blake Thornaffle has shown that he has the ability to put points on the board. What was different in this game that kind of pushed things past all those late losses that we've had in the past couple weeks?
Well, like you said, Chris, offense, again, wasn't a problem. It was the defense that came up and finally stepped up. They only allowed 17 points in the entire game, which is the fewest points they'd have allowed since their last win last year against Miami of Ohio. And this was probably the first game we could say the defense won them the game. I know the offense put up 40 points, as they had the last 3 games. They put up over 40 points. And also, it wasn't just Blake Thornaffle. Obviously, he had his stats. He had 286 yards, 3 touchdowns, He's done it for a third consecutive game. Lorenzo Woodley rushed for 160 yards. Now, go back 4 games against Penn State, and the whole rushing team had 3 yards total.
Yep.
So that's a big improvement. They won on rushing and defense. And just talking about heading into this game, they were coming off 2, dramatic losses. The homecoming game against Bowling Green, that is a game they should have pulled out and they lost. Last week against Miami of Ohio, the team they beat last year, they had a 27-point lead and they lost that. Clearly devastating losses. I think they went into this game really angry. They wanted to prove something. They knew that Kent State was an opponent they had a chance against. They were 0-5 heading into the game. Like you said, now they're 0-6. And they just took it to them. They finally were able to, close those second half demons. They were able to close out the second half. They were up 24-10 at halftime. And Kent State scored first in the second half. So UMass fans are saying, here we go again. They're going to let this go.
Yep.
But they were able to close it out. Offensively, Blake was there again. Lorenzo Woodley, was there on rushing. The defense, I think, won in the game.
Well, it's about time that the Minutemen put all sides of the game together. That's offense, defense, and special teams, which has been a major problem this year. Now, we talked about it before. Blake Frohnapfel has been a stud. You said he leads the MAC in yards, which is kind of shocking that the team is 1-6 at this point in the year. But we're going to look at Blake now. We're going to look at his stats this year. He had 3 touchdowns yesterday in the win, the other day in the win. Xander, tell me about what's been going right for him. What has been going right and what has made him so successful this season?
Well, really what I've found that's helped him a lot this season is he's had a lot of flexibility with his targets. He's had Mark and Michelle, Gene Sifrin, Jalen Williams. You can name about 6 different receivers that he's thrown to this season, and I feel like that's really helped him to say, all right, I can do this. I can throw the ball. And also to that end, like I said with the main first point, offensive line has really stepped up too, and they've really shown him, yes, we have your back. We'll give you time to throw the ball when you need to. And that's what really helped them win this game too.
Well, that's great to hear. He's been doing it week in, week out. This is nothing new. We know this guy has potential. Joey, what did you see out of his performance this week?
Well, like we said, Chris, he just picked up where he left off. He has 1,300 yards in his last 3 games. He has 12 touchdowns in his last 3 games. He's clearly going into confidently. I think you can bring up an example. It might be a little far-fetched. Look at Tom Brady the first couple weeks of the season. He didn't trust his offensive line. He didn't trust his receivers. He wasn't playing too well. I think Blake is trusting his offensive line. On Saturday, he threw to 9 different receivers. 9 different receivers had catches. That's trusting your teammates. He's clearly confident when he's in the pocket. Like Xander said, his offensive line has been there for him the past couple of games. And I think he's just picking up where he's left off, against starting off with the Bowling Green game. He set the school record for yards with 580 yards. He had 5 touchdowns in that game. He had 4 touchdowns in the last game against Miami of Ohio.
Yep.
He hasn't been the problem this year. He's clearly the number 1 starting quarterback, and I think there's no doubt about that. I think that, moving forward after this game, they're going to have to see how, can they pick up after this win. We're going to get into it in a little bit, but they haven't won all year yet, so they have to see how they handle the win.
Also, another thing about his game too, he's been really flexible with what he does with the game. He can rush. He's rushed the ball with the running backs and by himself too, and he throws the ball. And I really like how he's been sort of mixing it up when he needs to with play actions, with throwing the ball down the field, and just simple running plays too to gain simple yards for first downs.
Well, I also attribute that to Mark Whipple, and the job he's done has been incredible.
Definitely.
Definitely a step up from Charlie Molnar. Not only a step up, but a giant step up. So I credit Mark Whipple as well with that. But obviously, it's shown on the field. The offense has been great. The defense has been the main problem. But now looking forward to Eastern Michigan, the team's 2-4. Another team that on the schedule that UMass should be able to beat. They should be able to beat. We've had the tough games against Penn State, Vanderbilt, the big names. But now it's time to kind of cash in on this schedule going forward. So what do we think about this game against Eastern Michigan? We're back in Gillette. What do we think about it, Xander?
I think it should be an easy win for UMass. Eastern Michigan's been outscored 271-91 this season, and UMass has only been outscored by about 50 points as opposed to 180 for Eastern Michigan. But what I'd really look out for here in this game is Eastern Michigan's running game. That's really been their strong suit all season. Granted, it's not much better than UMass's, but still, it's something to look out for as UMass has struggled so far this season against the run. And their passing attack really has been almost non-existent, their quarterback throwing for only 353 yards. So that shouldn't be much of a problem, but really stepping up on the defensive line is really what should make or break this game.
Joey, what do you got to say about this? What does the average fan not know about this game and want and need to know as UMass heads into this game against Eastern Michigan at Gillette?
We'll just pick it up with what Xander said. This team's 2-4. They're only averaging 15 points a game. and they're allowing 40 points a game. So you wonder how they got to the 2-4 record. How
You
they
wish
got
that
those
would
two
be the
wins.
case
Yeah.
for the Minutemen if the points would calculate into wins.
They don't add up.
No, they don't.
Again,
Continue.
let's look at this. They're only averaging 15 points a game. That gives UMass a chance to prove itself on defense for a second consecutive game, which they haven't done all season. This is they're coming off their best defensive game of the year in the last 2 years, actually. So we're going to see if they can repeat that performance. And, they're giving up 40 points a game. So let's see if UMass offense can do what they've been doing. Let's see if Blake Fornap can put up another 40 points a game. I think it's going to be interesting to see how UMass comes out in the beginning of this game off to such a big high. Their confidence is obviously at an all-time high, the highest it's been since last year, their first win of the season. Let's see how Mark Whipple can get them back into game shape, playing a MAC opponent. While we don't think this MAC opponent is, kind of an easy win for UMass, it's still a MAC opponent. It's still a team they play every year.
Yep.
It's still going to be a tough game. So we're gonna see how they come out.
All right, well, thank you, Joey. Thank you, Xander. We are just excited that we finally got that first win under the belt, and now we go to face a team in Eastern Michigan that we should beat and should take care of. But thank you, guys. We're gonna head out and talk a little men's soccer when we get back. Welcome back. The men's soccer team lost a non-conference game to Hartford on Wednesday, but ended a 4-game losing streak against VCU at home yesterday. Here are Coach Devin O'Neill's thoughts on the game.
It was just a real battling effort. We have a ton of respect for VCU. They're a wonderful team, and it's just a great point, I thought on the counterattack we created a few good chances. I thought defensively we were really pretty solid. It's just a really good performance, and I thought the kids worked really hard for the point.
It was a great feeling. The ball went out wide. I think Brandon Vasquez had it. He was coming down the wing, and I was up front. I'm not really used to it, but I knew the back post was open, made a hard run, and he slotted a perfect ball across. And it was a great way to get on top, because when we score the first goal, it definitely gives us a confidence boost.
Now, we just saw Coach O'Neill's thoughts on that game against VCU, a 1-1 tie. 4 games ago, we hadn't had a win in 2 weeks, and now we get the tie against VCU in a conference game. I'm here with Tim Dennehy to talk about the loss to Hartford and the tie to VCU. So, what was so important about this weekend's game against VCU? Tell me what stood out for you.
It was a very important game. Nobody enjoys a tie. Nobody really goes out looking for a tie unless you're going against the German national team. But this tie was a step in the right direction. They stepped up offensive intensity and they managed an offensive presence, while at the same time they maintained that strong UMass defense that we have seen up to this point. Because they have lost so many games, but there have been just multiple games where it's just been 1 goal, and that's been the problem. And so we've been able to. This past game, we were able to maintain that defense while also having that offensive presence that we needed. What stood out to me to this game, the stat that really stood out was the corner kicks. So 10 apiece, which really shows just how much of an offensive intent this was. It was just back and forth, and 10 corner kicks. Corner kicks are really hard to come by because they have to deflect off the defensive player to go out past the goal. That's basic soccer for you, but. It's harder than it looks. You really have to have an offensive presence in order to get a corner kick, and for both teams to have 10 really shows how back and forth this game was.
Now, Tim, you talked about the defensive and offensive intensity with the corner kicks and only letting up 1 goal to the opponent in VCU. But now, who was the standout player, 1 or 2, whatever you got? Who was the standout player in this game for you?
The standout player had to be Matt Keys. Talking last week, I talked about someone had to step up. The morale of the team was down, and they really need someone to step up. Well, who else than the captain, Matt Keys? He led in both games against Hartford and VCU. He led the team in shots, and he had the 1 goal. It was the first goal, and then they came back and tied VCU. But he had the first goal for UMass, and people know he's a defender, and him having an offensive presence like that and leading the team in shots, it kind of shows you the struggle of UMass offense, but at the same time, it does highlight Matt Keys and his flexibility throughout his soccer performance game.
Well, that's good to hear. We have a player on offense who's shown some potential, because not only goals, but shots have been hard to come by for the UMass Minutemen and the soccer team. But now we have a game coming up against Dayton, another conference opponent. As we've seen, as the conference schedule has come about, We've seen much improvement on offense and on defense and in goal with Ryan Buckingham stepping up his play as the conference games have come about. What are we looking forward to in this game against Dayton?
Hopefully we can keep the momentum. I mean, momentum coming from a tie. Hopefully we can keep the momentum from a tie going into this game in Dayton. Dayton is no slouch by any means. They're number 38 in the nation. They have a very strong offensive presence, so I feel like if we can keep up our offensive game, if UMass can keep up their offensive game and really keep that offensive pressure while, again, maintaining that solid UMass D, I think we can give them a fair shot. But to be honest, it's going to be a hard-fought game this weekend if UMass wants to come out with any result here. But, I mean, if they show the same intensity that they did against VCU, I think we can see another tie, hopefully a win this coming Saturday.
Well, we had intensity against VCU, and we came out with a tie, which is better than a loss on any day in my book, especially for this team who had a rough start to the season, and now they're starting to show some potential in conference play. So we're looking forward to that game against Dayton. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
But that's all for UMass soccer. We're going to wrap this up and go to our field hockey segment. We had a game against Columbia on Sunday where we headed over there to New York City and lost the game 3-2. A close game, but that doesn't really tell all what happened in that game. Obviously, UMass did not play well on Sunday. So what went wrong in this game, Tom?
Well, if I were to make an analogy, the UMass vs. Columbia game was like a Nicolas Cage movie. It starts off terrible, and you're just like, wow, what the hell just happened? And Columbia is not a difficult opponent, really. I mean, they didn't finish very high in the A10 last year, but they were outshot 14-8, outcornered 12-4. It was a brutal game. I think maybe a little bit of jet lag going from New York to New York, but this is just a really tough game. And I think, to sum it up, I don't even know how to analyze this. I think it's just move on, go home, play Davidson next, and get back on track.
All right, well, we're going to move on to the conference game against Davidson. We got one win out of the weekend, so we'll take that positive from there.
Closer to 500.
And we'll go forward. We had the chance to be 500, but obviously we blew it in New York, my hometown. So I'll take that for as the positive out of the game. But that's going to wrap things up for us. Thanks, Tom. You did a great job tonight. And thank you for watching us right here on Channel 19 for another edition of UMass Sports Weekly. This week, as we said, the football team hosts Eastern Michigan for Band Day at Gillette Stadium, and the Minutemen hockey team will face off against the Spartans over in Michigan State on Friday and Saturday. Don't forget to follow our Facebook and Twitter pages throughout all the games for your updates. This is Sports Weekly. Have a great week, UMass.